I say simply, I'm still getting my head around my cover stitch, so I'm afraid I'm not going to be doing the transformation challenge. It happens on the bee, it happens here, it happens for all of us. The Mariflex thread has been a complete bust, and then I'm going to go a bit wild. Hi and welcome back to week 2 of Sew the Bee with me. I'm so glad you're here with me on my channel as I share this week's video. Thank you to so many of you who commented on last week's video. It was so lovely to hear how so many of you enjoyed following along as I tried to sew one of the challenges set for the bees in last week's Sewing Bee episode. And this week it was all about sports. Now, I do love Don, and he said it better than I can say myself. Sport is not my thing. Now, I love getting out on the bike, I love going for walks with my children, and I love swimming, I love doing all sorts of activities, but I have definitely never been one who has succeeded at organised sport. And that's fine. But as a busy mum who does do a lot of things on my bike during the week, I certainly have my fair share of active wear, but I have to say, I haven't sewn much of it. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves. Let's start at the beginning, and the first challenge is the pattern challenge. Now, they had to sew a half zip sweater in a fleece in 3 hours. Now, the pattern was quite complicated. It had a collar, it had obviously a half zip, the clue's in the name, but then it had a pocket which also had a zip, and that was from nylon. It was a nylon pocket, it wasn't lined, just a small nylon pocket with a zip. And then it had some seam lines to allow for some colour blocking, and the judges said they wanted a bright, colourful fleece. And the bees definitely delivered on that brief. They made some amazingly brightly coloured fleeces. I think my favourite was Marcus, who went around and collected a different colour of fleece from each contestant and put them all together to make his fleece, which was so lovely. Now, I have not made a half zip sweater for myself, I have to say, but I was wearing this at the beach today, so I thought I would share it. And that is my pogo nip sweater. Now, this isn't a zip, obviously, it's a popper, but the same idea. It's got this collar piece here, and it's got the fastening down the front. It's got the sleeves. Now, their sleeves, they simply had to fold over and cover stitch. I mean, I say simply, I'm still getting my head around my cover stitch, let's be honest. The pogo nip has elasticated sleeves and an elasticated bottom band, although I left the elastic off this version just to make it a really easy to wear casual top. I made it from a Fabric Godmother fleece fabric, and I actually lined my version with a bamboo jersey just to make it really nice and snugly warm. I tell you, it was perfect for a British beach day, which of course started with wind and a bit of cloud, but did finish with glorious sunshine, so we were very spoiled today. So that's a great pattern, and I've actually made 2 of those. So this is the first one. I'll just get the other one. This is the second one. I love these colours. They're so bright and colourful, and I tell you, this is such a perfect garment for chucking on, even on a summer's evening when it's just that bit chilly, throwing it over whatever it is that you've got on in the garden or on a walk. It's such a great extra layer. Again, I made the elasticated sleeves on this version and the elasticated waist as well for this one, and I put on these beautiful heart buttons that I had in my stash, and I just love this version. It's so bright and colourful, and it always makes me feel happy when I put this one on. So I'm not going to be sewing myself a half zip sweater, but if you want to, I did find another couple of patterns that I thought might be great if you wanted to make one a bit like the bees did. The first one I found was the Fibre Mood DD. Now, this is so similar. It has that half zip with a really lovely cut around the neck. It has the collar, and it also has elasticated waist and cuffs. There's also the French Navy Roscoe sweater, which looks quite similar to the Fibre Mood DD. Now, I love French Navy patterns. I can definitely recommend them in terms of their instructions. They're very clear, very detailed, very easy to follow. So if you're someone like many of the bees who hadn't sewn a lot of jersey and knit fabrics before, I can definitely recommend French Navy patterns as a good place to start. Now, the other pattern that I have found is the Lowland Kids half zip sweater. Now, don't be deceived by the name. This is a children's sewing pattern company, but they do also have adult patterns. And there is an adult half zip sweater that looks great. It's a unisex pattern, it's got a good size range, and they also have a version for children and for youths or teens, but I'll come back to that later on. Now, the next challenge was the transformation challenge, and they took cricket whites and they had to turn them into an avant-garde outfit. So at least 2 pieces or, you know, dress, something that would be an outfit from these cricket whites. Now, I did consider going and cutting up my oldest son's cricket whites and having a go at that because it looked such fun. But I do want to make things in these videos that are going to be wearable. And I do have a second son who will grow into my oldest son's cricket whites, so I don't think I can cut those up just yet. So I'm afraid I'm not going to be doing the transformation challenge in this video. Now the third challenge was the made to measure challenge, and this was a really interesting one this week. They had to make sort of a team kit, sort of ready for the Olympics, for an Olympic sport, and it had to obviously represent the colours of a particular country. So that was a lot of fun to watch, but again, not one I'm going to be recreating in this video, as I don't have a huge amount of use for gymnastics leotards or weightlifting outfits, or sadly even a tennis dress. I mean, I'd love to play tennis, but now I have to say there are a lot of lovely patterns out there for this kind of style of clothing. I've seen so many beautiful patterns on the Jaylee website. I'll list that below. They have all sorts of leotards and sportswear options if you're interested in looking at some of those. Styler has a few patterns for adults. They have a great tennis dress called the Tavera. That is a lovely sort of knit top and skirt with built-in bike shorts, so that's a great style of dress if you're interested in that kind of thing. I also found a great company called Fair Trade, which I'll link below. They have all kinds of leggings and jogging bottoms that looked fantastic if you're wanting to sew leggings. Personally, I have got the Helen's Closet Avery leggings, and I have wanted to sew those up for a long time, but the ready-to-wear ones that I bought before I started sort of being brave enough to sew with activewear fabric are still going strong. So I haven't felt the need to sew that one yet, but that's definitely another one that is on my list to sew. In terms of other sports, the Friday Pattern Company have a great free shorts pattern. It's called the Sport Shorts pattern. Now I have sewn that one, and here they are. I made these in some Lady McElroy cotton lawn that I had that was left over from another project, and some cotton twill I think that I had left over from another project as well, and I just put the two together because I thought they were quite fun. I love the bias finish on the pockets and on the side of the shorts. I did lengthen my version. I think I made the large graded to an extra large over the hips, and then I lengthened the pattern by about 1 inch. I love the way the back is slightly longer than the front, and I do not wear these for exercise. These are pajama shorts for me, but they are such a lovely comfortable shorts pattern, and I really loved the look of them with that contrast bias. So for sports or for pajamas, loungewear, can recommend that pattern. And to go with it, I made another free pattern, which is the Blommer Tank by Paradise Patterns, and that is this one here. Very simple tank top with binding that you make from the same fabric that goes around the neck and the armhole, and then just gets hemmed with a straight hem at the bottom. Now obviously you could definitely work out in that set the shorts and the tank. Mine is definitely for loungewear. So what am I going to sew this week? Well, I thought I would have a go at the half zip sweater. Now like I said, Lowland Kids has got a half zip sweater that looks fantastic. There's great pocket details on the front. I love the half zip. It doesn't have the pocket like in the Sewing Bee, but because it's got the pocket on the front, I think that's equally great. And in fact, when you're wearing a sweater, it's just nice to have somewhere to put your hands to keep them warm. I love the fact that they have a children's version, a youth version, and an adult's version. So you could even make a family matching set of half zip sweaters if you fancy doing that. I don't, personally. But one of the other challenges I wanted to set for myself in this series of videos is to use what I have in my sewing room already. Sewing Bee comes out on a Tuesday night. I like to try and get my videos uploaded and ready for you to watch for Saturday morning, so I don't have a huge amount of time to go fabric shopping and pattern shopping and haberdashery shopping and all the rest of the shoppings. So I want to try and use what I already have in my stash to make these garments. Now in terms of the half zip sweater, I have this. All of these are from First for Fabrics, so I'll link them in the description box below if they're still available, or I'll just put a link to First for Fabrics because they have such a lovely selection of sweatshirt, jersey and French terry. This one I got from them in the winter. It must have been about October time, and I made a Megan Nielsen Jarrow sweater from it, and I wear that all the time. It's a really nice weight. It's a brush back French terry. It's nice and warm, but it's not too hot, so it's sort of perfect in the autumn, although I did wear it through the winter as well. It's a great, great, great sweater and a great fabric. I do have quite a bit left over though. I think I might make the main body of the half zip sweater in this. And then I have some of this fabric left over, which was also from First for Fabrics. I made a lovely pair of joggers for my daughter in this fabric. But the pink here in the little love hearts matches the pink in the French terry. So I thought I might try and use this as a bit of a contrast, perhaps for that pocket area. And then I also have this ribbing that I bought to go with this fabric. So all of those three should match, and the ribbing I believe goes on the cuffs obviously of the sweater and on the pockets, and then I think it's also used for the zip guard down the front. One of the things I really like about this pattern, especially if I'm making it for my daughter, for a child, is that it does have a lovely zip guard and a really nice finish at the bottom of the zip and the top of the zip, so it does look quite professional. There's also a video to go along with this pattern and really clear instructions from what I've looked at so far. So I think all in all, that will be a really nice one to sew up. Now the other thing I've got in my stash are these zip charms, and I got these from Fabric Godmother as part of the advent calendar this year. There's a little flower with sparkles and there's a little pink love heart. The problem I have is a zipper problem. I have zippers, but the pattern wants you to have a 12-inch zipper, and I do not have a 12-inch zip, so I have two zips, a pink and a purple one, which are perfect colours, but they're only 9 inches long, so not the perfect length. Then I have sort of a beige and a black zip that are the right length. In fact, they're slightly longer, they're about 18 inches, but that's fine because you can trim those. But they're the wrong colour. However, I thought if I added one of these little charms to perhaps the black zip or the beige zip, I might just about get away with it. I'm thinking of the black zip just because that will blend in a bit with the purple fabric perhaps around that area, and then the little pink charm will really show up on the front of that zip. So that's all to come. I'm going to cut out the fabric tonight, and then I'm going to sort of play around with which zip I use in the light of day. It's getting a bit late now, the light is definitely going. So I think tonight all I'm going to do is get the pattern cut out and the fabric cut out, and then we'll be ready to sew tomorrow. Now the bees had 3 hours to sew this pattern, which is not a lot of time. But to be honest, it's probably all of the time that I have tomorrow because it is half term. So I'll probably get about an hour during the day tomorrow to sew when my children have a bit of quiet time in the afternoon. And then maybe an hour after bedtime. And then I should get an hour or so tonight. So I probably only have about 3 hours in total. So let's see how far I can get and if I can get a half zip sweater sewn up in 3 hours. That's the last piece cut out, and I'm at 18:57. So I've already used quite a lot of my time, but I think cutting out does take a while. So I have all my pieces. I need to go down and feed my children some breakfast because they're currently catching up on the rest of a movie they didn't quite finish last night. So I've snuck up here to do some cutting out, but I think they'll want breakfast. So I'm heading down to get them some breakfast, and I will have to pop up here later on and see if I can continue my timer and get some more of this half zip hoodie sweater thing sewn up. Hello, I'm back up in the sewing room, and I would love to know whether the bees get time to change their threads or if that's all set up for them before they start each challenge. I'm assuming it's all set up in advance. Mine, however, is not. So that is the first job I'm going to do, and I'm not going to set the timer for myself. I am just going to change the threads and then I'll get the timer going. But before I change the threads, what I actually just did, if you've watched last week's video, you'll know I wondered about adding a waist tie to my rainbow dress. If you haven't watched it, I'll pop it up on the cards up here and you can watch it after you finish watching this video. But I did make a day dress from this rainbow seersucker, and I did talk about adding a waist tie. So I thought just before I take off the needle and the thread from my sewing machine, I'll quickly whip up a waist tie. It's actually really, really long. So it's probably slightly too long. So what I'll probably do is I will try it on with the dress. I'll snip it to where I want it to go, and then I'll just sew across the end. That's my waist tie for that dress done. So now I can change the needles and the thread. I'm actually going to use a Mariflex thread. I have this pink Mariflex thread that I used on another project, so I will use that for some of the things I need to do that require a sewing machine, like adding knit binding to the collar piece, so that makes a really nice neat finish on the inside. And then I'm going to go a bit wild. I have got pink overlocker thread and I have purple overlocker thread, and seeing as I'm using fabrics which have both pink and purple in them, I thought I would use 2 cones of pink and 2 cones of purple, because why not? So I'm going to thread up my overlocker with those 2 colours, and then what I've just done is I've laid all of the pieces for the pattern on the floor just to check what it all looks like, because I've added sleeves in one colour and the pocket piece in another colour, and the back I've colour blocked a little bit, so I just wanted to lay it all out and make sure it works before I sew it all up. And then the other thing I did was to try the black zip and the beige zip, and I think the black one looks better. Like I said, I'm trying to use up my supplies. I don't want to go and buy new supplies for this project. And I think the black will look fine. It actually tones in quite nicely with the purple. The beige didn't really tie in with anything. It just looked a bit wrong. So we're going to go with the black zip. I'm going to call it design choice and move on and start sewing. So as soon as I have put the right needle on my machine and I have put the right overlocker thread on, I'll start my timer again and we'll get sewing. Here we go. Just for a dose of reality, the Mariflex thread did not want to sew nicely, even though I tested it, I have to say. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a massive thread nest here in my work. So what I just did was overlock the edges. This is the zipper guard, by the way. I thought I would sew that on the machine and press it nicely, but yeah, the Mariflex thread wasn't playing ball. I did put in a jersey needle, so I might try a stretch needle if it continues to sort of skip stitches and not stitch nicely. And I am running low on Mariflex thread, so I may just change that out. I think the only other place I need to use my machine on this is on the zip, which won't stretch anyway, so I can just use my jersey needle and a plain polyester cotton thread for that. Polyester cotton? Plain polyester thread for that, my Guzman thread. So zipper guard's done, and I have bias bound the collar, and I have done attached the front to the back at the neck, other way around obviously. And let's see what time we're on. We are now on, as the time ticks away and I chat on here, we are now on 32 minutes, so 2.5 hours to go. So let's carry on with the next step. Okay, we are at 1 hour and 15 minutes, roughly speaking, and I'm going to pause here. So I've used about half my time, and I have to say the zip was quite fiddly to put in. I mean, the instructions were fine. There aren't a lot of notches in the pattern to put in, and so I think it makes it slightly trickier in terms of fitting in the collar, but it is in, it is straight. This zip guard I chose to make from the ribbing, which is okay. I think I'm learning a lot from this project, and my son, actually, my middle son, would like me to make one for him, so I'm learning a lot about how to put it together, which is great using the scrap fabric. I'll call this a wearable toile. My daughter will definitely wear it. She's already come up here to have a look at it. So that's that. Now, obviously I have to chop off the bottom of this zipper, but it does have this lovely zip guard at the bottom of this zip, half zip, which I think looks really smart. So I like the way that goes in, and my collar does line up, so I'm quite pleased with that, although you will have seen I did initially have to unpick this bit down here because it didn't sit straight, so I have now fixed that. But that's real life, isn't it? That's real sewing, stopping to fix all of those little mistakes that happen along the way. It happens on the bee, it happens here, it happens for all of us. The next step, I think, is to sew down the inside of this collar. So you'll see it is still flapping about here, but I think the next step is to attach the collar here. So I might see if I can find a little label to pop in along the collar here before I sew that down. And then it is the pocket and putting the back and the fronts together and the sleeves. So quite a lot to do, but I do think the hardest part is behind me, the popping on of that zip. But yeah, my children have had some quiet time in their rooms reading books, but I think they're done now. So I am also going to be done. We're going to go and hang out, play some games this afternoon. I think it's pretty miz outside. It's raining and a bit grey and horrible, so I think it's a perfect afternoon for some hot chocolate and some board games, and hopefully I'll get back up here tonight for the last hour and a half of my sewing to get this half zip completed. Right, I'm back in the sewing room, It is after bedtime, everyone has had a lovely afternoon. It's so nice to be able to be on half term and just relax and not worry about dashing out the door for school runs and activities and things. So in a minute I'm going to start the timer again and we're going to get cracking for the next part of the hooded sweatshirt. So here's the front here. So these are two pieces. This is going to be the pocket piece and then this is the front piece of the pattern. And I've got these two strips to put over the raw edge of the pocket pieces here. All of this next bit I think can be done on the overlocker, which is perfect. Nice, easy, quick. The Mariflex thread has been a complete bust, just by the way. I've never had so many problems with it before. Mind you, I have to say there's about 4 or 5 layers of fabric around here where the zip is, where the zip goes in because of this zip guard. So I'm wondering if the Mariflex was just not happy sewing through all of these layers of fabric. The bird's nests of threads were just getting too much. So in the end, for this top stitch here, I just did a triple stitch on my machine and it's fine. It's not probably my favorite. I do like the Mariflex thread when it works because it just looks so much neater, but I think it's fine. So that has now taken me up to an hour and a half. So that's half my time spent on doing this part here, hoping I can get finished in the time, but we'll just have to wait and see. I did put in a really sweet label that I bought. It's a Kylie in the Machine one. It says "You are clever," which I think is perfect. And I'm going to put that to one side now. And I'm going to get going on the pocket and attaching that to the front of the sweatshirt. Finished and with half an hour to spare, but I do have to say I did keep taking breaks and I did read the instructions beforehand, which obviously on Sewing Bee they didn't get to do, and I suppose I did do it for a child, not for an adult, but you know, there is still a lot in this pattern, so it did take time, especially putting in this zip and this really cute pocket with the binding here on the pocket edges. Does have cuffs and a hemband rather than cover stitching, but I'm pretty sure those two things would take about the same amount of time. I am so thrilled with how this came out. I think it looks so sweet, and I did put the little charm here on the zip. I think the two things that I would definitely improve next time were this zip guard here at the top and the top stitching here around the collar, but I am so happy with that. It's nice to get some of this fabric used up from my stash, and I definitely think this is a pattern I will come back to for my older boys and possibly even for myself. I think I prefer this even to my pogo knit with this gorgeous pocket here, and it's so nice that it's a pattern that comes for the whole family. So I'm hoping to be able to get some photos of my daughter wearing that tomorrow so that you can see what it looks like on. It is quite big. I made the 5T size and she is almost 5, but it definitely looked from the measurements like it was going to be on the big side for her, but I would rather make it for her to fit into because it is now summer, so she'll hopefully wear this more in the autumn and the winter, but it'll be a nice little layer that she can chuck on over her skirts and shorts and things for the cooler summer evenings. And I mean, let's be honest, it's not been that warm yet, so she may get some wear out of this before the really hot weather sets in. I'm sure she'll look so sweet in this, and I'm looking forward to trying that on her tomorrow. So that's it from me for this week, for this episode of Sew the Bee with me. I hope you enjoyed coming along as I had a go at sewing that. I cannot wait to see what they get up to in next week's episode, and I will hopefully be sewing along with them next week as well. I hope you're enjoying this series. Do pop a comment below and let me know if you've sewn a half zip sweater, and if so, which one, and if you would give this a go. Like I say, great pattern. I would love it if it had notches, but having said that, all the pieces fitted together perfectly. The instructions were fantastic. It really was a lovely one to sew. Definitely a great pattern for beginners or intermediate sewists. Very straightforward and lots of fun to put together. So I hope you enjoyed seeing that, and I hope that you have a lovely week ahead full of lots of happy sewing, and I'll see you in next week's vlog. Goodbye.